Uh, I am Pete McHugh. I go by the nickname Primo, and I may explain that later on. I was elected to the board in 1996. I did not know that I had won the election until the day after Thanksgiving. And I was very fortunate because I was running against a very popular vice mayor in San Jose, Pat Saucedo. Nevertheless, I was fortunate to serve 12 years on the board, and they were a very satisfying 12 years. I'd always been kind of a bookworm. I grew up on the East Coast, moved out to California, and IBM moved me up to Milpitas in 1973. And because of the community, I got very involved. In '76, I ran for city council, lost. In November, we had a special election. I ran and I was successful. And I served on the Milpitas City Council for 20 years. I decided to run for the Board of Supervisors and was successful. And again, very, very satisfying making the system work for people. I've kind of broken down my time into three areas. The first one is I want to acknowledge some people. I think I made contributions to the county by supporting Pete Kutras as county exec. He was a wonderful manager. He worked very collaboratively with the soups and was most effective and had a wealth of knowledge about the organization. I'm also proud that I supported Ann Ravel for county council. I think the first woman to serve in that capacity, and she has gone on to distinguish herself further. She has worked in Washington, and she is currently in Sacramento, a most impressive lady. I also had the distinct honor of working with Jim McEntee, who was in charge of Human Relations Office, and enjoyed working with him, and he was committed to making sure the community worked well. I think the most important thing that I was part of on the board was the Children's Health Initiative. And this was championed by Blanca Alvarado, who I used to call El Corazon, or the heart of the board. Nevertheless, we were the first county in the country to introduce that concept, which made medical care available to children whose income was less than the average. That was a wonderful thing to be part of. Basically, it was the tobacco money that made it possible for us to do that, but still a wonderful thing to be part of. The Housing Trust of Santa Clara County that we enacted with the help of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group was a wonderful thing to be part of. And I had the good fortune to serve on the Finance Committee for, I think, 10 of the 12 years I was on the board. And even though I had a background in accounting, the main reason I had the post is nobody else wanted it. Biggest accomplishment there was getting the county to adopt a 5% reserve net of pass-throughs. Prior to that, we did not have a reserve policy. Times were getting difficult, not as bad as they are today. But to make cuts and still set aside money for a wetter, rainy day was quite an accomplishment. And I believe that 5% reserve is still there. Those are some of the accomplishments. Also, the establishment of the Valley Medical Clinic in Milpitas is something I'm very, very proud of. That serves not only the people of Milpitas, but Berryessa, Alviso, and that was needed. Related to that is the establishment of the commercial area around Elmwood. We have 2 of the 3 dealerships, and the county is pursuing a 3rd. That's beneficial because it means property tax for the city and the county and sales tax revenue. But the other great aspect of that is what we did is we boxed in Elmwood so they can't expand. It's too expensive to go up, and it's not possible to go down. So that means we're at capacity. And for those of us who live in Milpitas, we've always viewed Elmwood as kind of a cancer in our midst. And we've tried to get it relocated, but that hasn't worked, so this is the next best thing. That's good news. I was also one of the cheerleaders and have been, still am, for BART. And we may see that in my lifetime yet. I think the current date is 2018. Anyhow, that's progressing. I think that will be extremely helpful to the South Bay. Ideally, as many have pointed out, if we had built it way back when as a ring around the bay, that would have saved us a lot of money, would have helped with the growth of Silicon Valley, but we're doing it now. That's positive. I want to mention keeping the safety net, and that's still there, and that's good. This is Valley Medical System, their clinics, and the hospital. I understand that there may be some significant reductions, not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year. And I am glad that I will not have to make those cuts, because that provides a great deal of service to the people of this county. Their burn unit, their trauma center, it's just an excellent, excellent center. One other thing I'll mention before I get on to my true love of being on the board, and that was I cast a decisive vote to authorize Regional Medical Center to establish a trauma center at what used to be Alexian Brothers. Some of my colleagues felt that that would be unnecessary competition for Valley Medical Center. It turns out that they are doing a wonderful job for the people of the East Side. I speak from experience, having been in there for a week and a half on an emergency cardiac basis, so that came out well. That was goodness. The other thing that stands out in my memory is recognition of the diversity that makes this county such a wonderful place to live and work. I started the Unity in Diversity program with the help of Noella Tabladillo, who worked for me, who's now government affairs rep for Kaiser Permanente. But that is a program that recognizes the diversity of the communities that make up our valley, but it also recognizes that we have so much in common. And that program is continuing to this day. I also kind of pushed the envelope in terms of recognizing various communities. The Assyrian National Day, the Double Tent Festival for the Taiwanese, Black April recognizing the fall of Vietnam, Tet being recognized with flag raisings at the County Administration Building, recognizing the 50th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. I think that was the first time that had been done in this country. And we did that for several years. And what we were doing is recognizing the contributions of the people who had come here to help the valley grow that claimed China as their motherland. So I think it was appropriate. Unfortunately, a subsequent Consul General for the People's Republic basically told me, we don't want to have your recognition if you continue to recognize Taiwan. We had an interesting discussion. Those were great days. I remembered he brought up the fact that I was going to Taiwan, and he said, we'd prefer you not do that. And I said, well, thanks, I appreciate your input. He also mentioned that your government has a one China policy. And I said, yes, I believe that's the position of Washington. I happen to be in Santa Clara County. We have a slightly different take. We recognize people that have come here to build this county from wherever they come. So we now only celebrate the national 10th. And that's fine. Maybe someday they'll be willing to share the spotlight. Totten Day, we started, and we were the first county. We did that the same year that the state of Sacramento recognized Totten Day. That's to recognize the contributions of the Scottish people to the establishment of our country, going back to the Revolutionary War and the contributions since then. We were also the first to recognize Palestinian Cultural Day. We may be the only government agency that has done so. And I believe that that's appropriate because we have a lot of people who were born or have ties to Palestine who are here making this county work. There's some interesting stories connected with that, but nevertheless, I am very proud of that. I am proud of the fact that my successor, the president of the board, David Cortese, is maintaining those celebrations of community. I think that's positive because the more we know about the other people that share this land with us, the more we can respect them and get along together, and that's a two-way street. That was the whole idea of the Unity and Diversity program. So that's the greatest thing about living here and to have had a chance to help guide government. I am also very, very proud of activities with the Vietnamese community. I mentioned Vietnamese Black Sunday. We also recognize in the middle of June Vietnamese Armed Forces. But I was got our county, which was the first one to do so, to recognize the flag of the Republic of Vietnam as the symbol of the Vietnamese in Santa Clara County. And that was kind of unique because the country does not exist any longer. Our government doesn't recognize it. But they were a brave people that we fought with. And to them it symbolized their heritage, their hope, and their country. So I am very, very proud of that. In fact, out of all of the immigrant groups that make up this wonderful land, the Vietnamese to me seem to capture the essence. Their love of education, their love of family, their respect for elders, which I've been for quite some time, their willingness to work hard and to assimilate. And having tried to learn Vietnamese, I appreciate the challenges that learning a new language, a new culture brings. But they have enriched our community, and I'm very grateful for their presence. It's the typical story of new communities coming to America. So anyhow, it's been a most enjoyable 12 years. It surpasses the 25 years that I enjoyed at IBM, and I enjoy making the system work. Some of them happened while I was on the board. I have a tendency to stick my nose in where maybe it doesn't belong. When the city of San Jose was discussing the Little Saigon project, I made every one of the council meetings and spoke up in support of naming it Little Saigon, which to me seemed to be the appropriate name. It's like an Italian area is typically called Little Italy, with the exception of the North End in Boston, but there are exceptions. Anyhow, I was very, very happy to be at the unveiling of their sign, which the community paid for and came up with. They basically, this is a wonderful example of politics in action. They stood up for what they believed against the city council, and it took them 4 years, but they now have that designated area as Little Saigon. And I am so proud of what they accomplished. Even to this day, it proves that if you believe, I don't want to say you can beat City Hall, but you can get the desired results. I'll mention two other examples. I could go on forever on this. Also, when they were talking about the Sikh Gurdwara in Evergreen, I went to all the Planning Commission and City Council meetings, even though I don't live in San Jose, wasn't on any of their boards, because I thought that would be a wonderful enhancement of the community. And time has proved me right. The neighbors have not had the problems with traffic that they anticipated, and they have become a wonderful part of the community. And again, it reflects the diversity. I said I'll mention three. I may go on, but there. Anyhow, the other thing I got involved in was while I was the mayor of Milpitas. And this is when the Muslim community was trying to establish a school on Scott Boulevard in Santa Clara. So I wandered over and spoke at 2 of their meetings in support of the school. My reason for doing that is because the main people complaining about it, or expressing concern would be a more appropriate way to phrase it, were the folks that worked for LSI Logic. And their headquarters were in Milpitas, so I figured I had a claim to fame, but I still remember the looks on the Planning Commission faces as, what are you doing here in our town? Once again, I thought it was a legitimate cause, and I felt an obligation to speak up. And they've turned out to be wonderful neighbors. No, but I will mention my relationship with Supervisor Alvarado, who I refer to even now as the heart of the board of El Corazon. She was surprised when she proposed the idea of a county holiday for Cesar Chavez. And she figured that would die on a 3-2 vote. Oddly enough, it passed on a 3-2 vote, and I think she is still stunned. But that seemed to be appropriate to recognizing one of our own. One of my colleagues suggested that we eliminate Columbus Day in exchange for Cesar Chavez Day. That was an idea that she withdrew rapidly. But nevertheless, again, we had a hero, a civil rights leader, and it would be an appropriate recognition of the Hispanic community. So that was an interesting struggle. I am very happy with the way it turned out. I remember the assessor coming down and saying, oh my God, the impact on our productivity, et cetera. Anyhow, it passed and is still enjoyed by the county, and it's appropriate recognition. However, while we're talking about the relationship with Blanca, the one place I ran into a buzzsaw with her was I supported Reed Hillview. And I still think it makes sense that we have that there. It's unfortunate that we have a lot of homes surrounding that. But I think there is the need for the 3 regional airports. A dream that I never pushed that I think would be good for the county would be a regional airport authority. That would have the 3 county airports and the big dog. The Normanetta, Silicon Valley, and add 5 other names of your own choice. Anyhow, that I think would serve the people well, but I don't see San Jose giving that up. That might be a task once the current financial challenges are met. Anyhow, those are the contentious things that I recall. When I was still new on the board and I was trying to make responsible fiscal decisions, and Valley Medical, then as now, is a major part of the budget. And I foolishly is the appropriate word, called the legendary Bob Sillin and asked him to come over and meet with me and give some guidance. And I said, Bob, this is a tough year coming up. Do you have any suggestions as to what we can do? And he just smiled and said, well, cut everything else, but don't touch VMC or the system. And he did a wonderful job of protecting and growing VMC. There's no question about that. In fact, that story gets even more interesting when he was made a sub-god by the judge who had declared that our prisons weren't providing adequate health care. And God, did he relish that position and the power and authority he had. And he rode that until they decided maybe they could not afford him. But anyhow, he was a legendary, very, very effective director. Yes, yeah. A lot of good people. Some of the people who have occupied the board, a personal hero is Mike Honda and Enzo Lofgren. And also I would say Ron Gonzalez. I think he got a real raw deal from the Mercury News, and that also tarnished unfairly, I think, Cindy Chavez. But Mike's story appeals to me because as a young boy, he was sent to an internment camp. And there's a great picture of him as a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old, with his bat and his baseball glove. Anyhow, he went to school, he served in the Peace Corps, worked in education, ran for the board, ran for the assembly. He's now a federal representative. And for somebody to care that much about people, having lived through what he lived through, just impresses the heck out of me. You talk about character and integrity. Yeah. Oh, a lot of giants have passed through there.